Okay, so I just wanted to finish the ideas that I had about talking about New Israel Fund. I made 2 videos. They weren't very coherent yesterday, and I just wanted to finish off the ideas that I wanted to discuss about this organization. So the issues I had with the New Israel Fund is, and why am I even talking about New Israel Fund? I don't generally talk about organizations I disagree with that much. There are plenty of organizations I disagree with. I think the reason why I feel like talking about New Israel Fund right now is because I'm disappointed, because I had hope that this could be someone who could work with. And when you see the poison of what the left does in the world, throughout the world, America in many ways is like the last great hope for liberty in the world. America is radically different than every other country in the world. The ideas of America are radically different than the ideas of every other country in the world. And that's what makes America great. There is an idea of American exceptionalism, not because it's run by white males. It isn't. It's run by people of all kinds. And it's because of the freedom of America, the ideals of liberty, the ideas of limited government, and so forth. That's why the left wants to fundamentally transform America to be just like every other European country or whatever. And so, when you hear something like New Israel Fund say they support religious freedom, well, I support freedom. But I support the American style of religious freedom, not the French style of secularism. There's a difference between secularism and religious freedom. Religious freedom means you're free to be secular as well, but there's no favoritism for one denomination over another on the governmental level. And that religion has a voice as much as its constituents, as much as its adherents have. That's what gives religion a voice. And people have a wrong idea. They have this idea that, we see this creeping into America as well. We see this idea, people say things like, an Eruv is unconstitutional or something crazy like that. They have no idea what the Constitution is about. For someone to say something so stupid, it shows either they don't know what the Constitution is about, or they believe in the Wilsonian ideal of the Constitution being a living and breathing organism, document that can change at the whim of the Supreme Court, as opposed to really is only supposed to change through the amendment process, which is intentionally a very, very difficult process. Yes, it's possible. It's there for a reason. And amendments can be repealed as well, but we've had a lot of stupid amendments. Only one that was repealed was prohibition, but there are at least 2 others that really should be repealed. Are the income tax and the direct election of senators, both of which are incredibly stupid amendments. And they came out of that same period of American stupidity, of the Wilsonian period. and this flirtation with totalitarianism and socialism that still exists to this day, and we're still suffering 100 years later from these problems. But what I want to say here about the New Israel Fund, I just want to keep this very brief and finish it now. I've already gone on for 5 minutes too long about this. So, I see them, they say they want religious freedom. I want religion, again, like I said in the other video, it's none of my business what goes on in Israel. I'm an American. I have no business in Israel, like Rav Soloveitchik taught. I agree. But, if you want to ask my opinion, I'm not saying that the Rabbanut shouldn't exist, but I'm saying it should be privatized. And I remember saying this to one Hasidic Rebbe. He said, but then we won't have a Yiddish Medina anymore. I said, what do we need a Yiddish Medina for? I don't understand. The holiness of Eretz Yisrael has not changed one iota. Based on who is in charge of it. Now, there might be halachic considerations about the amount of Jewish population in Eretz Yisrael. It has nothing to do with maintaining a Jewish majority in Eretz Yisrael politically for democratic purposes. Perhaps if there's the majority of Jews in the world are in Eretz Yisrael, I mean, certainly if that can be a bona fide proven thing, then Yovel and the things, laws of the Jubilee and so forth are reinstated, which haven't applied since the first temple was destroyed. It's really since the 10 lost tribes were lost. And the question is going to be, well, how do we define who's Jewish? How do you make this idea that the majority of the Klal Yisrael are living in Eretz Yisrael? Well, who are the Klal Yisrael? Do we only recognize Jews who identify as Jewish? We only how do we define someone as Jewish? I don't mean just halachically speaking. Right. So it's really a moot point. It's really neither here nor there. It's nothing to talk about. Rather, so I see this discussion of religious freedom. Beautiful. I want religious freedom. I believe in religious freedom. So then they say religious freedom means equality. I don't have a problem in Israel if the Reform conservative are treated just like everybody else. And by that, I don't mean that the Reform and conservative should be getting government subsidies. I mean that the Orthodox shouldn't be getting. And like I said yesterday, so then they'll say, yeah, but this is what I remember in Israel. They say things like, well, they give government subsidies to baseball and to this and that and movies that I don't use. Well, why not to the shuls and the yeshivas? So they shouldn't be giving money to the baseball and to the, I'm saying, that's not the job of the government. I mean, Israel, it embraced this totalitarian left-wing progressive ideology that is poisonous. And it's obsessed with identity politics. There's so many issues, so many problems. I just don't understand why the American right loves Israel so much when it is not really the type of government. And the reason is because America is so exceptional. The reason is because England is just as bad as Israel. Australia is just as bad. Canada is just as bad. All of these countries that are our allies, France, all of them are Germany, whatever they are, they're all just as bad as Israel. And so if we have them as allies, so Israel is a much more valuable ally to America because it's there in a very difficult, part of the world where there's value in having and having allies, and as well as the religious reasons. Many Christians, view for various reasons, a devotion to the Holy Land, and they conflate the devotion to the Holy Land with the government, which they shouldn't be doing. Put that aside for now. But the thing is, the New Israel Fund, on the outside, the words they use sound good, but then when you see what their actual stated goals, how they want to implement these things, it shows they don't care about religious freedom. Like I said, the example, the Rabbanut, I'm on board with them. Defund, privatize the Rabbanut. Let them exist just like the Bedats, like the Haredis. If people want to choose to follow Rabbanut, they can choose to follow Rabbanut. But my reason for that is because I think more people will be religious if you defang religion as a government issue. And the New Israel Fund doesn't want people to be religious. I mean, really, from the government standpoint, we shouldn't care if people are religious or not religious. It really shouldn't matter. People should be able to have the freedom to do what they want. Isn't that what religious freedom is about? That people, if they want, and it's, we really shouldn't care if people are religious or not from a government standpoint. From a religious standpoint, though, I want, people to be religious if they're going to authentically be religious. Also, that's another issue. Meaning, I don't mean just like to put on a black hat and grow payas and whatever, and even keep Shabbos. What I mean is, like, is it going to be a transformative experience for their lives? Are they going to develop a personal relationship with God through the mitzvahs that He commanded us? Are they going to make their lives better? Are they going to make society better? That's what's really important, and that's what the mitzvahs are there for, to do. And I'm not saying that if people aren't accomplishing that, they shouldn't be doing mitzvahs. What I'm saying is that the mitzvahs should inspire us to be good, normal human beings, I wanted to get to these points, and I keep getting distracted. So what is it that I want to say about, examples? I mentioned the buses in Israel. Gender segregated buses. There were these people who thought, I'm going to be the what do you call it? The Rosa Parks, in Israel, and I'll be a woman who sits with the men. And like the women were upset at her, Because what was the issue with Rosa Parks? Was that the government was segregating the buses. That was the problem. The government did all these things. The Democrat government did this. The Democrats did it. And that was the problem. Was that the government was doing this, but if the people on their own, privately, this is how they want to operate in a free market, that's up to the people. And so here the segregated bus is not a discriminatory practice, it's a religious devotion. And the women want it just as much as the men want it, or else, it wouldn't be there. It's not like the rabbis have this control over the people. The people decided this is the way they want to live. saying, they want it to be like France, where like you can't wear a yarmulke in a government building. Like, and that's not religious freedom. I'm sorry, And so if New Israel Fund is claiming that they're interested in religious freedom, why are they seeking to undermine the religious freedom of religious, private individuals, including people who work for the government? They're still private individuals, I heard they want to ban, Lubavitch from setting up tables and putting tefillin on people. And even though from a religious standpoint, I might have a problem with what Lubavitch does with that, from a government standpoint, the government can't be. So too, I remember some years ago, there was a lecture from, I shouldn't mention the name, from Tovia Singer. And it was like one lady, this is back in the 90s, this like old Jewish lady, this Kyle's mom lady, she's like, oh, we gotta get President Clinton to stop these people. And Tovia Singer was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, no. And furthermore, we can't be upset that President Bush has fellowship with Messianic Jews, because they are Americans too, and they're not. This whole like us versus them identity politics. It's really sick. I don't know. Missionaries should be free to do what they want. It's freedom of religion. And so too, from a government standpoint, the Reform conservatives should be. Someone said to me, I was saying, we have a very welcoming synagogue. So someone said to me, well, what if a woman wanted maftir? I was like, it's not that type of synagogue. Are you going to go to a Catholic church and say, well, I'm a Muslim, but I need to get communion, even though I was never baptized Catholic? No, they're not going to give you communion. You're welcome to come and sit and listen to the homily or whatever. It's just whatever. I don't know. So these are among the many issues we want to discuss here. But does people have just a skewed view of what religious freedom means, what tolerance means? Like, the left is just so unliberal. They will not accept that, yeah, there are other people who have different views than you, and it's okay. I'm not threatened by the fact that there are atheists in the world, that there are Reformed Jews in the world. But the Reformed Jews are very threatened that Orthodox Jews are still around. The progressive atheists are very threatened that religious people exist in the world. The libertarian atheists, people like Petulant, people like, or agnostics like Austin Peterson, they don't give a damn if you're religious or if you're not, just as long as you're not using the government to force them to be religious. And so I agree in Israel, yeah, the Rabbanut has too much power. But that's one of the problems with having a Jewish state. And the answer to that is we should not have a Jewish state. It just shouldn't be. There shouldn't be such a thing. It's so ridiculous. It doesn't belong in the 21st century. A country that's based on a religion. And then they'll go and say, well, the Jews, we went through the Holocaust and this and that and whatever nonsense that they talk about. I'm not saying the Holocaust is nonsense. So what? So like we get to have a state because of the Holocaust? And I mean, if you know the history of what went on there, the Zionists, they collaborated with the Nazis. precisely for the purpose of getting the state, and they pressured every country to say, don't take in Jewish refugees. The Zionists, I mean, Chaim Weizmann was the first president of Israel, and he wrote in the Young Judaism magazine in the 30s already, he's like, those religious Jews, they're going to be the dust on the wheels of history. We don't need them. We don't want them to come and turn our Tel Aviv into a low-grade ghetto. And so we're going to benefit from the fact that Hitler's going to kill them all, and then they'll feel bad for us, and we'll get the state after the war. That's what the Zionist ideology was that they wanted the religious Jews to be killed so that they could start their state. And then after they had the state, look at what they did. They took the Yemenites, what they did to them, told the parents their kids died, sold the kids to atheist Ashkenazi commies, Zionists, made them cut off their payas, made them eat treif, made them break Shabbos. And it wasn't only the Yemenites. Many of the children who survived in the Holocaust, their souls they survived the bodily Holocaust of the Nazis and were murdered in the spiritual Holocaust of the Zionists. And yet the New Israel Fund, as much as they want to remove religion from their government, they will not give up on Zionism. And so that's why I cannot support an organization like New Israel Fund, because they are committed, still the same thing, J Street. I will not work with J Street. First of all, I don't believe in the two-state solution, and I don't believe in, and I wouldn't call myself like, pro-Israel supporting this two-state solution. I believe in a one-state solution. I believe Israel should annex the land that they rightfully won. I really believe in a federalist approach to Israel. That's what's going to solve the problem. Federalism, divide Israel into several states with one central federal government. That's not very strong, but a rather weak but strong enough federal government that's there to protect religious freedom, really, more than anything, on both sides. I mean, there is no issue. The Jews are not looking to undermine the religious freedom of Muslims or of Christians in Israel. And the Christians are not looking to undermine the religious freedom of Jews or Muslims in Israel. There are some Muslims who don't want there to be, freedom for other religions in Israel, but some are open to religious freedom. And so, as long as basically we're protecting the religious freedom, that's really the only job that the federal government should be having, and everything else should be relegated to the individual states. And so you could have, Palestinian state under a united, two Palestinian states, Gaza and the West Bank, two states under the federal government of Israel, but with states' rights level autonomy. But the thing is that people are not accepting this idea of federalism, which is so valuable and so important and so needed in our world today. And so too, even the existing state of Israel could be divided into secular, modern Orthodox religious Zionists, Haredim, even different types of Haredim, and have a certain level of autonomy and self-government under a federal government that ensures protection of religious minorities and ensures religious freedom. And that would solve everything, really, because it wouldn't be a Jewish state anymore on the federal government level. On the state and local level, there's not much of a problem of having religious governments. The problem is on the federal level, So this is why I'd like to say. I really should write a book about it. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment.